If you're coming to Rocky Mountain National Park, then hopefully you're planning to do at least a little bit of hiking while you're here. There's no better way to experience the amazing lakes, waterfalls, mountains, and wide open tundra of Rocky Mountain National Park than on a hiking trail. Now, if you're going hiking, it's really important that you bring the right things with you. You want to be certain that you have everything you need, but not more than you need. Finding the right balance can be challenging. So in this video, I'll walk you through what I recommend that you put in your backpack. Now, the advice I'm going to give you today is based on you doing a short to moderate day hike, which could be anything from a couple of miles up to 10 or 12 miles, depending on your fitness level. Now, if you're planning to do something more substantial, then you'll probably need a few more things than I'll be recommending today, but you'll still find this to be a good base. Now, the first thing you really need to have with you is a small backpack, preferably one with padded straps. Sometimes I see people hiking with little rope straps, and those can get quite painful after a while. But a backpack allows you to leave your hands free and really helps you forget that you're carrying anything at all. Now, if you're carrying more weight, such as lots of extra water or camera equipment like I do, then you'll want a good fitting backpack with hip straps so that the weight is carried more on your hips than on your shoulder. But for most people doing a day hike, a simple backpack like this will work very well. Now, as you're planning what to pack, you need to think about two things. Firstly, what you'll actually need during your hike, and secondly, what you might need if things don't go according to plan. Now, 9 out of 10 times you'll probably not have any issues, but if one should occur, you'll be very glad that you're prepared. Now, if you happen to twist your ankle or lose your way, you might be out in the wilderness for longer than you were planning. You could get cold, hungry, thirsty, and also find yourself needing additional things that you might not normally pack. So when you pack, you need to think about what you might need in such situations, while at the same time trying not to overpack. Now, that may sound complicated, but there is a tried and true approach that I and most other outdoor enthusiasts follow. Now, this approach encourages hikers to always pack the 10 essentials. These are 10 categories of things that outdoor experts agree are essential to have with you on every trip. They don't have to take up a lot of space or weight, but they could make an extended stay in the wild a lot less difficult. Now, the 10 essentials are as follows: food, water, fire, fix-it, first aid, insulation, illumination, sun protection, shelter, and navigation. Now, that may sound like a whole lot more than you need for a day hike, but I'll show you how simple it can be to have these with you and to be properly prepared, and you'll find that it really doesn't take up a lot of space or a lot of weight either. Now, the first item on the list is food, and that's pretty obvious. When you head out for a hike, you definitely want to bring some food with you. Your body will be burning calories, and you'll need to replenish those calories to maintain your energy. I recommend bringing things like nuts, dried fruit, sandwiches, and other healthy foods that are easy to carry and don't make a mess. Many people like to bring granola bars and trail mix, and that's a great idea, but be aware that some of it is filled with a lot of sugar. It'll give you a sugar high and then drop you really low, leaving you with very little energy. So having something with less sugar is generally a better idea. You'll want to bring enough food for your hike, plus be sure to bring a bit extra in case you're stuck out there for an additional 4 to 5 hours or even for a night. I keep all of my food in a separate bag as it makes it really easy to find and organize. Now, the second thing you'll want to bring with you is water, and I recommend using a reusable water bottle rather than a single-use bottle. They're much stronger and less likely to be punctured, and you're not contributing to the trash in the park. For shorter hikes, you can probably get away with just one water bottle. For hotter days or longer days in the park, bring at least 2 full bottles of water. Now, since I often hike long distances in the park, I normally bring a special tool with me to help me purify water from streams and lakes, allowing me to have an almost unlimited supply of water while I'm out. Now, there are many different types of water filters available, but instead of using a water filter, I generally use a special UV light called a SteriPen to purify water. It works really well in the clear waters of Rocky. However, if you're just doing a short hike, you can probably get away with just carrying 1 or 2 water bottles like this one. Just be sure to bring a little bit more than you might need in case you're out for longer than expected. Now, number 3 is fire. There are very few places in Rocky Mountain National Park where you're allowed to have a fire, and all of them are in campgrounds and picnic areas where they've installed metal fire grates. Outside of these areas, it is illegal to start a fire. However, if you are lost or injured in the wilderness and are freezing at night, a small, well-controlled fire can save your life. So always bring with you either waterproof matches or a lighter, just in case the worst happens. Now, if you do have to start a fire to survive, be very aware of your surroundings and build a small fire ring to contain it. Rocky Mountain National Park is very vulnerable to devastating forest fires, and just one spark in the wrong place could cause unspeakable damage. So don't start a fire unless you're in a life or death emergency. Category 4 is Fix It. This category is for those tools or things you might need in order to make any repairs. Now, two of the most universal tools you might find helpful in the wild are a small folding knife or multi-tool or a Swiss Army knife like this. They can help in so many different ways as they have so many different features to them. The other thing I always bring with me is duct tape. Now, that seems like a strange thing to bring, but duct tape can be used to keep a shoe, backpack, or hiking pole together. I also use it for hot spots on my feet before they turn into blisters. I also carry with me an extra set of shoelaces. Have you ever tried hiking with broken shoelaces? It doesn't work very well, but this can also be used for a lot of other things as well. Now, number 5 is first aid. Even if you're going out on a short hike, you really should carry a small first aid kit with you. A small kit like this can help you address minor cuts and scrapes, blisters, headache, bee stings, allergies. Just be sure you know what's in your first aid kit and that you know how to use it. Now, since I spend a lot of time deep in the mountains, I typically carry a much larger first aid kit. And inside, I also keep a wilderness first aid book, just in case I need to look anything up. If you're in the mountains a lot, I really recommend taking a wilderness first aid course or a more advanced first responder course. It can save your life and someone else's as well. Number 6 is insulation. By insulation, they mean something warm to wear as the temperatures drop. Here in the mountains, it can get very cold very quickly, even in the middle of summer. Nearly all year long, I keep a down jacket in my pack. This down jacket, really compresses down really small, doesn't take up much room or weigh very much. And I always keep a winter hat with me, as well as a pair of winter gloves, because up in the tundra, it can get really cold. Now, the other thing you really should have is a rain jacket. These are great not only for the rain, but they're also terrific to have with you if it gets very windy and cold. You can put this on over your down jacket. It'll give you that extra layer of insulation and help keep you warm out there. So I always carry these. The insulation portion may seem a little bit big and bulky, but in truth, they all pack down small and don't take up that much room. Everything else fits into a very small space. Now, the next category is illumination. Now, even if you don't intend to be out in the dark, I always carry an LED headlamp with fresh batteries, just in case you get stuck out longer than you intend. It's pretty miserable to be out in the forest at night without a light. I sometimes hear people say that they plan to use their phone as a light if they need one. Well, while your phone may have a nice light, it won't last nearly as long as a headlamp, and you probably want to save your phone's batteries for more important things like calling for help or finding your way, especially if you're stuck in the woods at night. You can buy a small LED headlamp cheaply. They don't take up much space at all, and they can be a real lifesaver. Just be sure to check the batteries before you head out, and I like to keep a spare pair of batteries with me in my first aid kit. Now, number 8 is sun protection. Here in Colorado, we have a lot less atmosphere between us and the sun, and so the UV rays are very intense. You'll find that you get sunburned much more quickly in the mountains than you do down at the beach, so bring and regularly apply sunscreen. I also recommend that you bring a sun hat, especially if you have thin hair like me. Some of these are pretty compact and just tuck away in your bag. And then you also should have UV protecting sunglasses. Now, many of the cheap sunglasses don't properly protect your eyes, so check that your sunglasses have UV 400 protection. Now, number 9 is shelter. If you're backpacking, you'll probably have a tent with you that can serve as your shelter. Well, you're probably wondering, what do I do? I'm just taking a simple day hike. I can't bring a tent. Well, you don't have to. I always bring an emergency bivy sack. They're cheap, tiny, and yet can save your life. If you're stuck out at night, you can actually open this up and get into the sack and pull it tight around you. And these sacks are made of mylar, a strong reflective material that will hold in your body's heat. They can save you from hypothermia and are well worth having in your pack. And so number 10 is navigation, the last one. You need to know where you are and where you're going. Now these days there are lots of great apps for your phone or watch, and if you're planning to use these, be sure to download the maps before you leave, as you probably won't have cell connection for much of your hike. Now, I may sound old school, but I strongly recommend that you also bring with you a physical map and compass, and that you know how to use them. Now, the reason for this is because your phone may lose battery power, or it could be dropped and break. If that happens, you'll be stuck outside with no way to navigate, unless you have a physical map and compass. They don't take up much room and are an important backup to have, although you do need to know how to use them in order for them to be helpful. Now let me just mention a couple of extra items which you may want to consider. I always bring a whistle with me. Now the reason for a whistle is that you can only yell for help for so long before you lose your voice or lose your breath, especially if you're injured. But you can blow on a whistle without much effort for hours and hours to help people find you. Now this one opens up and has waterproof matches inside, some tinder, a small mirror for signaling, and also has a small compass. So by using this little thing, you can reduce the size of your gear even more. Secondly, since I do a lot of hiking in the park, often to remote locations at all times of day and night, you'll see that I always carry a satellite tracking device with me. Now, I have an old version of the Garmin InReach. It allows my wife to see exactly where I am on a computer, even if I don't have cell connection. This way, if anything happened to me, such as if I fell or had a heart attack, she would know where to send help. Also, this device has an emergency button for life and death emergencies. If I push this button, the National Park Service will be notified that there's an emergency at whatever my location is, so that they can send out a rescue party. Now, I also have the ability to send short text messages over satellite. I can use that in case I'm delayed, or if I have an emergency that is not life or death, such as I've twisted or broken an ankle and need some help getting out. Now, all of this equipment fits really easily into a small backpack like this. One of the things I do to keep it organized is I put all the smaller things into a little sack like this, similar to my food sack. That way it's not rolling around in there. Then you just stuff it in, and if you look, it's still just a little bit over half full, so there's a lot of room and it isn't too heavy. So if you have one of those days where it seems like everything goes wrong, you'll be glad to know that you're well prepared. I'll put the details of all of these different items down in the show notes below. Well, before I finish up, I want to let you know that you do not need to bring bear spray or bear bells to hike in Rocky Mountain National Park. This is not Yellowstone or Glacier National Park. We don't have any grizzly bears in the park, just a few black bears. They're actually quite small and they aren't interested in you. They'll do all they can to avoid you. In fact, I've hiked over 10,000 miles through this park at all times of day and night, and I have never had a single scary encounter with a bear. So leave the bear spray and the bear bells at home. And let me end by mentioning just one final but very important thing. Since we're talking about hiking in the mountains, I want to remind you of the golden rule of hiking. And that rule is that you should always let someone know exactly where you're going, the route you're taking, when they can expect you back, and who they should call if you don't return. Then stick to your plan. That simple rule can make a huge difference and maybe even save your life on those days when things don't go well in the mountains. Well, I hope you learned something new from this video. If you want to know more details on how to prepare for your hike, or if you want ideas on where to hike, then I recommend that you check out my hiking guide called Hiking Rocky Mountain National Park, the Essential Guide. I've got a ton of information in here on how to prepare and also 75 amazing hikes in the park. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss all the Rocky Mountain National Park videos that I'm in the process of preparing. I'll see you all soon. To help you prepare for your visit to Rocky Mountain National Park, visit my website, rockymountainnationalpark.com. For hiking guides, calendars, coffee table books, and more, visit rockytrailpress.com. And when you arrive, be sure and stop by my gallery in downtown Estes Park. It's called Images of RMNP.